We're going to talk about a story that you don't care about. We're going to talk about Michigan in a story that you do care about. We're also going to touch base with James Madison in addition to a potential billion-dollar lawsuit coming for the NCAA. Strap in, baby, because we got a lot of bases to cover. What is up, everybody? It is Jake with Master Football back at it again. Happy Wednesday. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to be up to date on everything college football, pro football, Madden, EA college football, NFL draft, anything related to American football, hit that red subscribe button. You will not be disappointed. Also the like button too, and follow on Twitter/X. That fame is growing. Without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, guys, we got ourselves an absolute banger today. We are going to take this across multiple different areas. We're going to talk about my alma mater, Boise State, in a story that you don't care about. We're going to talk about Michigan in a story that you do care about. We're also going to touch base with James Madison in addition to a potential billion-dollar lawsuit coming for the NCAA. Strap in, baby, because we got a lot of bases to cover. The first thing I want to do is talk to you about a guy by the name of Eric McAllister. Eric McAllister is a sophomore receiver at Boise State right now. He is absolutely on fire, doing a really, really great job out there. Again, he's 12th in the country in receiving yards at this point. Absolutely fantastic on a team that has underperformed 4-5 so far in the season. However, right now, 4-5 in the thick of things, still trying to keep that 25-year bowl streak alive, Eric decided to do this. Here we are with BroncoNationNews.com. Breaking: top receiver Eric McAllister is transferring from Boise State. This came through just the other day on November 6th on Monday. It says he is transferring, multiple sources told Bronco Nation News late Sunday night. McAllister can't officially enter the transfer portal until it opens on December 4th, but sources told BNN he informed the Broncos of his decision to leave the team on Sunday. It's a very important thing to remember here. Again, right now, more than likely this situation, again, this is all hypothetical at this point right here, but more than likely what's going on here is somebody, he is off, the team is 4-5, he's not doing very, well as a team, but he's doing very good individually. He's a sophomore, he's from Texas. He also had a harrowing story about how he said he was, he grew up in a rough neighborhood. He said he was smoking weed as early as 8 years old. He's had a bad upbringing. So somebody probably approached him, I don't know, maybe a team from Texas approached him with, let's just say, a good chunk of cheese out here for him to come to the team. Now, again, it's not a legal tampering window right now. You cannot tamper with people until that December 4th window opens up. He enters early, meaning more than likely somebody has reached out to him. And what we're hearing right now, according to John Mallory, but he says that the school that I keep hearing and keep an eye on is TCU. BJ Raines on the future of wide receiver Eric McAllister. BJ Raines ultimately owns Bronco Nation News. So I know you're like, why the hell do I care about a 4-5 team losing their number one receiver? The reason why you should care, again, I'm not saying that that's the reason why you should care, but it's a sign of something bigger. What's the sign of is the fact that right now, basically, you can legally tamper, you can break the rules, you can do so many different things, and the NCAA is going to do what? They're going to do nothing. Again, we know Eric McAllister is going to get a big fat check. He deserves it. And boy's got to do out there, get his bread, take care of yourself. As much as it does hurt me as a fan, again, you have to take care of yourself, number one, first, because at the end of the day, you're the only one that's going to be sitting there, not all these other fans telling you to be, oh, you got to do it for tradition, you got to do it for allegiance. No, take care of yourself as much as you can. That being said, though, more than likely, and again, I don't know, it might be wrong, we'll see where he signs, but somebody probably got to him and illegally tampered with him outside of the transfer portal window, and the NCAA is going to do what? Nothing. I say that to say this right here because we're also seeing that even the Big Ten knows this based on the recent news with Michigan football. And again, this article came out on Monday too. It says Big Ten informs Michigan it might face disciplinary action. There's actually a couple really good points here from Adam Rittenberg of ESPN. It says the Big Ten, again, think about this, not the NCAA. I said before, the NCAA is not going to come down on whoever signs Eric McAllister. We already know that, even if it's outside of the rules. The Big Ten formally notified Michigan that it could be facing disciplinary action from the league, a Michigan official told ESPN. The letter sent to them, it says, which requires notice of disciplinary action, quote, in the event it becomes clear that an institution is likely to be subjected to disciplinary action. The NCAA is investigating Michigan for an illegal off-campus scouting and signal stealing, but Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti has the authority to impose discipline under sportsmanship policy before the lengthy NCAA investigative and infractions process concludes. Thinking about that situation right here, let's just say, and again, there hasn't been a formal complaint as of yet. They're cooperating with some people at Central Michigan, but there's no formal complaint. What that means is that Michigan has 90 days to respond. 90 days from when they do that. Let's just say it happens today. 90 days from today, college football season's over. And we all remember a couple years ago when a couple of wins and a couple national championships were avoided by USC. We all still consider them winning the national championship. Once the game is played and it's on the field, we don't care what happens off the field. You're the champion if you win it or not. So, thinking about this right here, Michigan knows this too. They're like, listen, here's the deal. And again, I'm not trying to say they did it. Again, we're actually going to get to that because it sounds like they weren't the only one that did it. But I am saying the fact that it looks like the NCAA is going to go too slow for what's going to appease the Big Ten teams. So the Big Ten is trying to get involved right now. So it mentions here the fact that potential Big Ten discipline for Michigan likely would be a suspension for Coach Jim Harbaugh rather than any team-related punishment, according to sources. The league's sportsmanship policy allows Petitti to impose up to a 2-game suspension, and again, that would be at Penn State and home against Maryland, a 2-game suspension if it were to go into effect immediately, and a $10,000 fine as standard discipline. Any discipline exceeding those marks would fall into the major disciplinary action and would require approval from the joint group of executive committee, which includes officials from several Big Ten schools. It mentions here, it says, if the Big Ten imposes discipline, Michigan and Harbaugh are expected to explore all legal options to push back against the league, according to sources. Although the sportsmanship policy grants Petitti the authority to, quote, determine whether offensive actions have occurred, the Big Ten's handbook also cites, quote, NCAA-initiated cases and notes that in those cases, its compliance and reinstatement committee, quote, may impose additional penalties if warranted subsequent to the NCAA action. The big issue here is the speed of all this stuff. Because you're talking about this right here. You're like, why the hell are there so many things about the Big Ten and the NCAA? The reason why we're having all these discussions about what the Big Ten can do, what the commissioner can do, as opposed to on top of the NCAA, is because the NCAA itself, again, we already have the situation with Eric McAllister. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to be enforced. What's happening right now is Purdue, probably Ohio State. I'm just guessing. A lot of those teams are coming forward to, we already saw the fact that Michigan State almost didn't play Michigan because they were so scared of them, of their sign stealing. They're all approaching them basically saying, you need to do something because we know the NCAA is not going to do jack. And now what's gotten even more complicated is this thing that just came out yesterday. So here we go. Yesterday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, probably when all of you got off work and stopped checking your phones, Michigan says Rutgers, Ohio State, and Purdue shared its signs. Oh boy, it gets more complicated. Check this out. Michigan has sent documents to the Big Ten that the school believes show 3 conference teams engaged in communication about the Wolverines' signals in 2022, sources told ESPN. The 3 teams involved are Rutgers, Ohio State, and Purdue. Purdue, which faced Michigan in the 2022 Big Ten championship game, received offensive signals from Ohio State and defensive signals from Rutgers, according to sources. Oh my God, here we go again, dude. It continues on here. It says, a Big Ten source said the league has forwarded any information to the NCAA for possible follow-up. It's unknown whether the signal sharing between the league teams violates the Big Ten sportsmanship policy or any NCAA rules. Dear God. The information passed along is not expected to impact the Big Ten's potential discipline for Michigan under the sportsmanship policy, a source said. NCAA rules do not prohibit in-game signal stealing, but bar schools from off-campus scouting in advance of games. I have no idea what the hell to expect here, man. One of the big issues we have is that it's similar to pro football and college football is the situation with the UFC and boxing. They're not the exact same sport, UFC and boxing, but I do understand this. The thing about the UFC is whenever they need to make a decision, one man, it pulls the entire league in one direction. Fighters only care about themselves because at the end of the fighter's career, he worries about himself, blah, blah, blah. That's what happens here. But the sport needs to live on. You need to make decisions for the entire sport, pulling it in one direction. You might upset some people here and there, but you have to do that. The problem with boxing is it doesn't have one person pulling the direction. It's got a couple power brokers. It's got a couple guys here. It's got a couple money people. It's got this. It's got that. Big fighter wants this. Somebody goes do that. Oh, let's get a YouTube guy here. Whatever it is, boxing is not really developing the stars and the athletes of the future like the UFC is. It's not as popular of a brand because it's so disorganized. Same thing with college football. I do think that the future of college football, as Joel Klatt even said, if college football was a stock, you want to buy it right now because a lot of these BS instances are starting to be slowly solved. This is one of the holdovers. The fact the NCAA is completely toothless. They're just a complete crap show of an organization. So much so that I have an idea that my friend actually came up with. We're going to talk about the James Madison Dukes and their undefeated season that's going to result in 0 bowl appearances. Let's check that out. So right here, just yesterday as well, James Madison submits another request to the NCAA in bid to gain bowl eligibility. James Madison right now is undefeated. They're trying to lift the restriction that allows the Dukes to from playing in a football bowl game. And again, you saw the fact that they have the 1-year transition. They're trying to get it waived. It's not working. Right now, they are undefeated and doing really well. They moved up from the FCS to the FBS, and so far, nobody wants to play them. The Dukes are also not eligible to play in the Sun Belt Conference Championship game during the 2-year transitional period. The NCAA imposes this ban on teams moving up to divisions to deter a bunch of schools from doing it at the same time. The transition period for basketball is 4 seasons. So again, I'm betting the same thing's going to happen. Whatever happens with the Eric McAllister situation, if the NCAA gets involved, nothing's going to happen. Whatever's happening right here with Michigan Wolverines, you can see the reason why all those Big Ten teams are wanting the Big Ten to be involved as opposed to the NCAA, because the NCAA is going to take 90 days and probably have a toothless reaction too. James Madison right now reached back out to the NCAA to see if they can get that old thing waived, and unfortunately it's probably not going to get waived. Here's what I think the James Madison should do. In the same way that more than likely the Big Ten is going to have a more severe reaction to Michigan than the NCAA does. Basically what I'm saying is that all those Big Ten coaches go outside of the NCAA to get the answer they want. I think James Madison should do the same thing too. I think James Madison, they should reach out to a TV provider, reach out to a bowl game, sign a deal, and do it anyway. The NCAA is toothless. That's my personal opinion. Because, thinking about that too, if you do something like that, James Madison goes out there, reach out, they get an agreement, they go out there to a bowl game without the NCAA's approval. Unfortunately, I think that it's not really going to matter because the NCAA is also staring down, at this point, a very small story that came out just the last week. They're staring down a $1 billion lawsuit. So for those of you who don't know, this right here is absolutely bananas huge. From Reuters, U.S. judge says NCAA athletes can pursue class actions seeking over $1.3, not million, but $1 billion. What class action basically means is that as opposed to filing lawsuits individually, they can now file it all as a group together. The lawsuit accused the NCAA of depriving U.S. college athletes of billions of dollars in compensation for commercial use of their name, image, and likeness can move ahead as a class action. A California judge has ruled. If you don't know how big that is, you don't know big. The plaintiffs said the classes comprise of more than 184,000 members who played men's football and basketball, women's basketball, and other sports for schools in the NCAA's D1, the top tier for the U.S. college athletes. The students accuse the NCAA and its conferences, and that's important too, you remember, of conspiring to restrict payments for athletes for television broadcasts, video games, and other sports revenue. So we can see right now that the fact that, again, nobody trusts the NCAA to get the job done. They're trying to find everything they can do outside of the NCAA. As a matter of fact, even the NCAA, and again, connect to some of those conferences, they would be Power 5 conferences in this instance, are getting more and more toothless. They're going to potentially have to pay out another $1.3 billion in a class action lawsuit. It's only a matter of time until the NCAA is done. This is just I'm telling you, everything here is speeding everything up. Okay, you can see the fact that right now the conferences are having to police themselves because the sport won't. Whatever it is, we're seeing all that stuff happen. But man, I'm telling you right here, that Michigan story. You saw the fact that Michigan was like, "Hey, dude, they were cheating too." I have no idea what to make of all this stuff, but I do know that we've got more chaos in college football coming off the field. Meanwhile, the on-field product actually has been some of the best I've seen in years. All right, guys, get in the comments right now. What do you think about all of that? Again, Michigan says, you guys were stealing our stuff. And then they were like, well, you guys were clearly stealing our stuff too. Everything's great. I have no idea what the hell to expect of all this. You guys let me know. Do you think that Michigan's going to be suspended in any way? Do you think that they're going to be prevented from being in the Big Ten championship game? I personally think no on both of those things. What I bet right here what's happening is I bet that a lot of teams that are scared of Michigan are trying to find some, situation that they also did themselves. They just didn't get caught with. Whatever it is, I don't know. But you guys let me know what you guys think. Get in the comments. And remember, please like, share, comment, subscribe. Do all that stuff. I'll see you guys later. I am out.